So today, even though we've gone out of order, we've done the three E's and the P already, and we're going to talk about temporal dimension today, which means time. And it really only translates into one slide for this. And here it is. So what are we going to use for time? And this can be a very interesting question because you could just do real time, right? I mean, when you're making a MOBA, there's no real desire to change the timeline of the actual player itself. You know, same with some other games. But let's say you're going to have a night and a day cycle. What do you do then? Do you make it the same exact time? So in other words, let's say roughly I don't know, 7 to 8 p.m. at night, the sun goes down, and I don't know, 6 to 7, it comes back up, somewhere around. You could do that. Maybe that'd be fun for like an MMORPG, but in a game where people just play consistently, let's say I'm going to enjoy a game, I'm going to sit down and play for 3 hours. I might want to do several days worth of mission, and to be honest, it might make sense to do it that way because if you have them traveling somewhere, right, you wouldn't want to say, well, this is a 5-day gallop on horseback in order to get to place B. So you'd want to speed that up a little. So how do you do that? Well, the first, as you can see, the first bullet is variable time, or the first sub-bullet. So you could do something, and I've played games where they say 1 hour equals 1 day, right? So that you can get a lot in. Now, you might make the events once they get somewhere take time out of that clock. So time might stop, essentially. So in other words, I'm going from Riverbrook to the steel mill, and that's going to take half a day. So if that takes half a day, it's going to take half an hour. But on the way, you find these marauders who attack you, and when the marauders attack you, you suspend time of that variable time. The variable time would only work in the traveling. And you know, you can do other things where obviously if they sleep, they go to sleep. I remember a couple games, and you don't see that as much as often. You used to be able to sleep in games, and when sleeping happened, you know, it kind of quick and sped up time. So there's like a new variable time ratio when you slept to kind of bring you back up. So you wouldn't have to spend, like, so if you slept for 8 hours, you wouldn't have to worry about hanging around for 20 minutes until you finish sleeping. Okay, so then what the next part would be anomalous time. This means that things don't happen in cohesion to each other or in relation to each other. So in other words, a good example of this would be real-time strategy, where you kind of mine, or let's say you cut down trees, but trees grow at the same time. Sometimes those trees have to grow a lot faster than the buildings take to get up, right? So in other words, 5 trees grow to full height by the time you make your first building, right? Because so the building itself, you know, if thinking in real terms, that building might take a year or two to make in our reality. But in a tree will not grow to full height in 2 years. So you have to actually make each thing grow or behave differently through the short periods of time that you have. And so it's kind of like variable time in that these guys will do it quicker. Building a building, hopefully, again, in a real-time strategy doesn't take you the actual time it takes in real life to make a building. But each one of these activities has its own kind of time duration. The other thing, and now this is in terms of giving the player some control, is that you can also have kind of like a slider bar to make things go faster. You know, I think the most obvious one was StarCraft. I think I always slowed that down to the slowest possible speed so I could micromanage more. But some people want that speed up and having to work through or get through a lot of things quicker and get to the gameplay quicker. So the one advantage is that you can get to the gameplay quicker if you keep it fast, or you have more time to do stuff if you slow down that variable time. And I want to call it a ratio because if you think about it, you say 60 if you're going to 1 hour equals 1 day, then you divide everything through by essentially 24, right? And so you have a 1/24th ratio, or 24 times over 1 ratio that you multiply everything by. Now, there's some other things that may work as well, but these are kind of like the tried and true ways. And I would suggest starting off with these instead of coming up with some type of kooky time. You know, there is some, I've seen games where you kind of warp and slow down and warp and slow down, but it doesn't make sense. So it's okay to speed things up when you sleep, but if people are doing the same activity and then all of a sudden time's going faster, might get you into trouble and might get some frustration back to the player, who's in turn not going to like it. Now, if you can say it's explicitly that way, okay, sometimes time will speed up, and it always speeds up when this happens. Then that makes a little bit more sense to the player and can actually be an added challenge. So think these things out. Time is probably one of the things that needs to be as just well thought out as all these other dimensions. In fact, I might even put this at number 1 on which one to plan out the most effectively, because once you nail what type of time you want to put into it, or the temporal dimension you want to put into it, everything else flows easily. Okay, I'd like to see some creative stuff being done in time, so I'd be interested to see anything that you guys can do and put into your own projects. All right, take care.